So cloud security, I love talking about cloud security. There are a number of cloud security vendors across the to, from, and in dimensions of cloud security, so delivering security from the cloud, security as a service, cloud infrastructure security, so protecting workloads and the use of APIs, and certainly cloud access security brokers or cloud app security. Mm-hmm. And I've always commented this is a market that is developing, maturing really quickly to really try to catch up to organizational adoption of cloud services. There's this sort of maturity gap with respect to the rate at which organizations have already adopted cloud and their readiness to secure that adoption. So we're seeing really a move to cloud security platforms. So really being able to cover multiple cloud services, be it apps or infrastructure as a service or both. So we're seeing some cloud app security companies that are doing cloud DLP that are now mixing in support for things like S3.
Yes.
So sort of cloud location agnostic DLP, which makes a ton of sense. So you can have a single policy lexicon.
Yes.
And secure all your use to the cloud. So again, number of announcements around this notion of a cloud security platform and the role of secure web gateways. We saw that ForcePoint acquired the Skyfence assets from Imperva. Cisco made an announcement about their secure internet gateway, which is this notion of basically merging gateway functions. Mm-hmm. So a lot of movement and a lot of activity in cloud security, and makes perfect sense because companies are catching up on how they're securing their use of the cloud.
Yeah, it's interesting. So 2 years ago, Doug, as you know, it was how do you secure the cloud? How do you secure the workloads? How do you secure users going to the cloud? How do you keep track of or monitor that activity? And now that's kind of full circle to, well, I'm doing so much in the cloud, how do I take that common engine, those common policies, those common enforcement rules, and how do I move that back into what I already have? So it's real interesting to me. And then the other thing is what's happening in the cloud is starting to replace what we've done historically, right. Replacing security hardware, replacing policy engines. So it's really driving the ship now.
It's a notion of sort of, inside out or outside in, right? You're using your cloud security controls from the cloud and then using those on-prem or vice versa. End of the day, customers want something that, span both.
Right, and I mean, I for one thought, okay, well, I've got these common tools and processes, I'll just expand them to the cloud. But actually the opposite's happening, which is real interesting. And one of the things that our colleague Tony Prigmore mentioned was cloud and all this externalization is driving much, much more profound change and a lot of dialogue around identity management. And that's an area I've followed for years, but there seems to be a renaissance of tools and technologies and initiatives, more importantly, corporate initiatives around identity and access management.
No question, it's this matrix of anyness, any user from any location, from any device, accessing any application at any time. Yeah. A lot of any's.
You should can that, matrix of anyness. I like that, it's catchy.
Yeah. I have one other story to share with you, John,
okay.
which is a customer presentation I listened in on. And this senior VP of security was basically crying uncle on the fact that they have too many security controls. They have upwards of 140 cybersecurity products. Yeah. And they're viewing this architectural shift to cloud, so they still have legacy bare metal. They have the current environment in terms of virtualized environment. They're moving strong to the cloud. They're viewing that architectural shift as an opportunity to also consolidate their vendor base. So this is, when I heard this individual speak, I thought about the enterprise class cybersecurity vendor research that we're doing, and we'll be publishing a report on that shortly.
Well, I hope we publish it shortly, but what we've learned in that research was, at least in the enterprise, there is an active movement toward vendor consolidation. That means CISOs are getting more involved in terms of vendor qualification. There's more due diligence on these vendors. Are these vendors developing software in a secure way? Do they have secure processes? Do they have the resources and the field support for enterprise class customers? And so that's going to take this pool of 1,500 cybersecurity vendors and I think merge it or evolve it into a couple of different power centers where you have enterprise class vendors who have an array of different technologies, who have labs and innovation, who have field support and professional services and those kinds of things. And so today's $2 billion cybersecurity vendors could easily be $5 billion in a few years.
No question. The market's highly fragmented. There's market pull for that type of consolidation, but there'll always be room for innovation from startups.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a question of, do they become a feeder, or do VCs become feeders for larger companies? And that's happened, but I think that'll continue to happen more. That's my Wall Street hat on, but
There you go.
I do believe that that's what's happening.
Yep, makes good sense. Well, great. Always a pleasure to chat about all things cybersecurity,
Well, it's always
especially.
a pleasure to see you too, Doug.
Good, John. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll talk again soon.